Here we go.
We are recording.
All right, welcome to Smoky View Church's podcast. This podcast is called It's Monday, Now What? It's Monday, Now What? And we wanted to make a podcast so that we could interface with Smoky View's members on a day-to-day basis or a week-by-week basis, closer to the front lines of where they're working, where they are living. So for the mother who's in the car with her kids, or for the dad who is on the road headed to work, for the person who's working overnight and needs a podcast to listen to, this is for them, right?
Yeah, because as we looked at in this past series, like worship is not just what we do at a designated time with a certain group of people at a geographical location. Worship is really a lifestyle. It's orienting everything around Christ and what He would say is right and true. And so, therefore, a lot of times we're asking the question, okay, it's Monday, now what? What do I do with my faith now that it's Monday? And how do I live this thing out? And how does my faith and worship actually rub against the realities of my Monday through Saturday? And so that's the aim. That's the aim, at least. So, yeah.
And you issued kind of a strong warning last Sunday to pastors who aren't able to speak to the most prescient issues in our lives and our societies.
Yeah. So, and I just first of all, like, guilty as charged, right? Like, it's a challenging thing to step into the hot topics of our day when you're a pastor, because there's just so much there. You don't want to hurt people. We're pastors at heart, so we want to shepherd and be kind and gracious and gentle with people. And so with that, what can then happen is we slide into this where we actually we lose the prophetic voice that God has called us to have, the truth speaking voice. And what issues should we be speaking truth to? Well, the issues that people are saying, it's Monday, now what? How does my faith interact and engage with these realities that I'm being influenced by in the culture? And I think Christians who, paid Christians or whatever, us pastors, we kind of have a little bit of a luxury where we can get into a Christian bubble.
Yeah.
These issues are hot topics and they can turn people off and we want to pastor them. 2, we can get into our church bubble, interact with only believers, and now we're never really rubbing against these things on a day-to-day, face-to-face basis at our work, at our schools, with our children, whatever. We're just having conversations with Christians about it. And so we can lose our prophetic voice just by nature of that reality. So I don't want that to happen to me. And so I want to listen, bro, man. I just want to chop it up with folks in the real world with real issues, because that's where Jesus met me.
Yeah.
I had a whole lot of real issues that were not very churchy, and Jesus met me in the midst of those.
Yeah.
And graciously people stepped in and was like, hey, here's where faith in Christ applies to these realities, and here's how you should better think about them.
Yeah. It's wonderful that you recognize there is a bit of a position of privilege when you get to you work at the church, be around Christians all the time, be steeped in the Word and steeped in books about the Word and podcasts about the Word, and then you get to the front lines, and just a personal anecdote of mine. I've just come out of the cable network television world, where we were dealing with front lines issues continually, and they were always right in front of me. You get there, and especially for the church member, the member of Smoky View, it seems like, oh man, I'm out on an island. So this podcast exists to extend a little bit of a supply line to the believer on the front lines.
Ooh, I like it. You said
Yeah.
earlier, not on here, but like practical and tactical.
Practical and
Any
tactical.
type of military terminology is gonna light my fire. So, yeah, let's go. The front lines, like, and what did you just say?
The supply
line to the front lines. That's what we're attempting to do here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like it.
Wonderful. Well, we've speaking of hot button issues and hot topics, we've had some heavy Sundays the last 3 Sundays talking about politics,
Yeah.
talking about society, how society ought to be ordered, how the founding fathers thought that it should be ordered,
Yeah.
and some of the 8 most I forgot exactly what you called them, but sort of the most pressing issues
Yeah.
in our culture.
So eight political issues that are really spiritual issues of our day. So the idea is, oftentimes right now, particularly in our current cultural moment, these things are referred to as political issues, and they're just not. They're clearly biblical issues, and so they're spiritual issues.
Yeah.
And we need to speak about them in that way, because those who don't have a biblical background, don't have a Christian basis, don't have a Christian morality or ethic, what we believe is, just frankly speaking, they're enslaved.
Yeah.
And that should break our hearts.
Yeah.
As a pastor, that breaks my heart. I want people to see the beauty in Christ's ways as it applies to the narratives that they are drawing meaning and purpose from in their life, and how it's still leaving them empty, broken, unsatisfied. And they're, on this, like, it may not be Monday, but it's today. And I think the world is asking, okay, it's today, now what?
Yeah.
Now, and like, yeah, I'm saying Jesus is what?
Yeah.
Like, you may not have identified him as the thing that you need, but he's it. And you'll be chasing, filling everything you can to satisfy whatever it is in your flavor. And oftentimes these political issues, which are really spiritual issues, are it taps into the different flavors of lower level desires that we have in our hearts to satisfy, and it never does. It never does.
Yeah.
Jesus is the only one who provides that deep, satisfying, but beneath all the shallowness of our lower level human desires that are all broken and twisted and perverted, Jesus rightly sets all that right and satisfies us to the depths of our being, so that then we can go out and be satisfied in our relationships, with our government and our society, and all the ways that plays out. So
Yeah, he says, "My peace I leave with you, peace I give to you, not as the world gives do I give to you." He is our contentment. He's our resting place, our hiding place, our shelter, our joy. And a lot of times we will take shelter in our conception of these political things. For whatever reason, we love to high horse on social media. We love to talk down to people self-righteously. We love to be right and to rest in our position, whereas you're saying we should be resting in Christ. And then from Christ, there is a position.
Yeah,
and
certainly.
There's
that doesn't mean that. Yeah, I love that. There is certainly a position, right? And we have to have the confidence, because one of the statements you see throughout Scripture is be strong and courageous, or stand firm. And it's like, well, that's the point, is that there's a position to have, and that we should stand on that. And
you used an analogy of a round stone, a stone that is not a rock that can cut, but rather, you want to give us that?
Yeah, I can elaborate on that. Being that, so a little bit into my history, maybe, military, prior to becoming a pastor or even really living the Christian life. And so can be very rigid, and that type of what some people, it's not actually the most successful leaders in the military, once you get in it and actually experience it, are not drill sergeants, but that's your first experience with leadership. So oftentimes military kind of just equate that style. So I had that tendency to be very drill instructor type, just very, and that's like a stone with really, really harsh edges.
Yeah.
And when I stepped into pastoring and leadership and trying to just honestly, even before that, just, hey, I want to introduce people to Jesus and help them understand the truths that have changed my life. And you can do that with really, really harsh edges, right?
Yeah.
You can be a stone that's immovable, that's standing firm, but you have really, really sharp edges. So every time somebody grabs a hold of it, they don't find a handle. They find an edge that cuts them.
Yeah.
And so I was, again, reminded of this when we were just recently in the mountains of East Tennessee over in a place called Del Rio. Let's go, Newport, Cott County.
All right.
And helping rebuild a home
Yeah.
that was destroyed by the floods. And driving down through there, looking at the river, there's these massive stones. And what you see is they've been worn down by the water.
Yeah.
To where they haven't moved, but all their harsh edges have been rubbed down.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Jesus does. He wears us down, the Spirit, the water, the holy water of the Lord, kind of situation, like rubs off those jagged edges that. And so the way this works out is then in conversation, right? Like I'm not aiming to harm, to hurt, to prove my point, to always be right. What I'm aiming for is for people to see Jesus.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I don't take a position, and that doesn't mean that I don't boldly speak the truth. However, it does mean that I take into consideration where other people are, and different people are in different places in their life. I heard one guy talk about it this way: is like some people you meet when it comes to like the it's called Christianity, the game of football.
Yeah.
They're on the team, on the field with the jersey on, and they have the ball running with it. You just need to push them. Look, you're there to do the little. Oh, I'm gonna do it. Philadelphia Eagles tush push, baby.
The brotherly shove.
Let's go. The brotherly shove.
It's not illegal as of this season.
As of this season, it's not illegal. As a Cowboys fan, how does that make you feel?
It hurts me. It hurts me. It hurts me, and I think it's unfair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, so in the Christian life, like the Philadelphia Eagles, some people just need the tush push, so to speak. Others, though, when you meet them, bro, they're in the tailgate. They ain't even thought about going into the stadium. Like they're so, and so like the way you engage those two people is going to be, you're going to consider where they are.
Yeah.
And then engage with them in the appropriate way with the prophetic voice that God's given you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, my goodness, we hit a lot there, but you talk about being firm and standing firm, but in this world, people tend to tell Christians you're not supposed to be political. Jesus himself was not political, they'll say. Can you speak to that for a moment?
Yeah. Okay. So here's when people ask that question or make that statement towards me, here's my response. Okay. As kindly as I can. So Jesus is king and he rules over everything except politics. Yes or no?
No.
Okay. So then, therefore, it follows that Christians should engage with politics because Jesus is king over politics as well.
Yeah.
Scripture is full of places where he sets the boundaries of nations and rulers and their times and their seasons. Listen, government, biblically, from Romans 13, is derivative of God's authority. The only authority they have comes from him. Therefore, they are accountable to him. And as believers in Christ, who are the salt and the light in the world, we are to speak to those issues so that people actually see a clear picture of what government is according to God and whether or not that government is falling in line with what God says or they're stepping out of their God-given authority and boundaries and parameters. So, yeah, that.
Yeah.
Okay. So God's in control of he's over and reigning and ruling over everything except for politics. Get out of here with that. And then two, it's like, what do you mean that Christians shouldn't engage in politics? When I drive out of this building and head down the road, I'm going to come to a red light, which is me engaging and interacting with a politics at some degree.
Yeah.
And so then the question is like, okay, if they still want to, like, it's like, okay, am I not supposed, Christians aren't supposed to drive down the road? We're not supposed to use roads or speed limits or anything like that. Like, what, to what degree then do you mean that we're not to engage? Because it's in the idea is fundamentally not possible for me not to engage as a person living in the modern world. I have to engage with it to some degree. So then the question would be, to what degree? And that just falls apart really quickly. Nobody can draw a line in the sand. It's because we all have a right to engage with government to the level in which we need.
Yeah.
And whether you're Christian or not, that's beside the point, you know, and especially in America, you know, we went into a history lesson in week 3 on some of those principles and the conscience and the necessity of religious freedom as it pertains to the conscience, and why the First Amendment is the First Amendment.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not a mistake that it's the first one. And so it's super important. So yeah, I think that's what I would say about that.
And
It's in short, it's silly. It sounds really piffy and cool on the front end, but the second you like dive into that statement, Christians shouldn't engage with politics, it just falls apart very quickly.
Yeah. Now this might be putting you on the spot. Do you happen to have your notes from 2 weeks ago?
Okay.
When you asked, we asked the question: Is America a Christian nation? Was it founded as a Christian nation? And it seems to me that you gave a well, at least you represented the founding fathers as having an absolutist mentality when it comes to obedience to Christ's command. You read several statements, and I was wondering if you could take us through a couple of those statements.
Yes. So off the top, we can just touch on the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, right? Like, so I'll scroll down through here and find, because I went through a lot.
Yeah.
Actually, no, you know what? Let's start with the colonial states, right? So these men who gathered to put together the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and write this, they were appointed and sent off to do this by the states, or they weren't states, the colonies at the time.
Yeah.
And so we can look into the colonies to see, okay, what was the prevailing culture of the day that they were swimming in? Like what were some of the, let's say it this way, what was the soil in which the seed of America was planted?
Yeah.
Right? What brought nourishment to this seed of America, this thing that's just, quite frankly, without it's nothing we've ever seen before outside of maybe Solomon's rule and David's rule, but that's a completely different animal so what was it? What was this soil like? What was it there? Well, you can look through the colonial states and their positions just from their oaths of office.
Yeah.
So the states gather and they're like, hey, we want people to be in these official roles in government, in the civil magistrate, and here's the things that they need. This is what we expect of them. Dude, Delaware, okay? I profess faith in God, the Father, Jesus Christ, His Son, the Trinity, right? Blessed forevermore. I acknowledge the Old Testament and the New Testament. You had to make this oath to hold a position in office. So you're telling me that's the soil in which, at least Delaware, Maryland, the same, North Carolina, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Vermont, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, all of them have overtly, and most of them Protestant, declarations for oaths of office. So that's one. So the colonies in which these men came from and found their leadership roles in were distinctly Christian, mostly Protestant for that matter. You want to argue with history, right? The Declaration of Independence, laws of nature and of nature's God. So this goes into, you can start thinking about enlightenment type things as well, and certainly, but when you look at this, you have John Locke and others who have this same language, but this was predominantly a Christian thought. That where does the laws of nature come from? Well, they come from the Creator, because the laws in it of themselves don't hold the validity and the power to establish themselves. It comes from somewhere else. And where does that come from? Well, it comes from nature's God, which is the creator. So you see these words in the Declaration of Independence, and these are distinctly words that are mostly used by Reformed theologians of the day. And so it's just, that's not argued. You see this in their writing, in their sermons, the way they talked about this consistently during the time. And again, remember, we're talking about the soul in which, we're not saying that every one of these guys were perfect Christians with no perfect Christian ever.
No.
Like, so there's that. So we can go and highlight the areas where they missed it, sure. Yeah. But if we're going to do that, we should highlight the areas that they nailed it. And I think on some of these things, they nailed it. All men created equal. Bro, this is distinctly Christian.
Yeah.
Like, you're not finding this anywhere else in any other religion, definitely not secularism anywhere in any way, shape, form, or fashion of the day. That's directly rooted in the Imago Dei. All men are created equal. They're endowed by their creator. It assumes in the Declaration of Independence in paragraph 2 that we have a creator.
Yeah.
That's not a secularist idea. They put this into their, when they decided, hey, we're going to draw the line in the sand and we're going to separate from you on the other side of the ocean. We're going to declare our own independence. They decided to put that in there, that it's based off of our creator. This is how they felt about it.
Yeah.
Right, wrong, and different. That's not even my point right now. But my point is that this was the soul in which this seed of America found itself, to include its founding documents. Our founding fathers, two people we can speak about, particularly James Madison and Thomas Jefferson, both of them huge advocates for religious freedom.
Yeah.
First Amendment. James Madison wrote it. If you read about John Leland's influence in both of these men's life, and how Pastor John Leland supported them, you have the whole Mammoth cheese situation where the Baptists gather together and make a huge 1,200-pound cheese in support of Jefferson in his 1800 election. And so these men who formulated these documents and worked on these documents, what's the soul in which all of this was giving rise in them? It was distinctly Christian, and pastors, and we could go through a list of men who, just quickly, Jonathan Edwards, which prior to all this, but he set for the Great Awakening, George Whitefield, John Witherspoon, Samuel Cooper, Jonathan Mayhew, John Peter Muhlenberg, which is my favorite. I said this in my sermon because he preached a sermon on Ecclesiastes 3 about a time for peace and a time for war during while they're about to start the Revolutionary War. And he finishes his sermon, right? And he removes his clerical robe to reveal a Continental Army uniform.
Incredible.
Let's go. That's my homie right there. But pastors and Christians shouldn't get involved in politics. No. So Reverend Charles Chauncey, Elisha Williams, and so many others, so many others. I don't have it on here, but out of the 50-something that signed the Declaration, I can't remember the exact number, over 20 of them were sons of ministers. So approximately half of them grew up in distinctly Christian households. You grew up in one. Has Christianity affected the way you live and the way you see the world in any way, shape, form, or fashion? Same here, right? Of course.
Absolutely.
To negate that for these small statements or whatever because they had a degree in law rather than theology is just absolutely silly, especially considering even when the laws, what they believe them to be rooted in, which was the creator and the moral law and the natural law, which is found in the founding documents as well.
Yeah.
So all of these things, you want me to keep going? You have the treaty.
Certainly.
Richard Dawkins in his book, The God Delusion, brings up this thing about, they're secularists, they would be appalled at the Ten Commandments being anywhere publicly displayed. And he quotes one statement from Article 11 in the Treaty of Tripoli in 1796. One statement from Article 11 says, as the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion, and then it goes on.
Yeah.
All right, that's granted, I'll give him that. Article 11, George Washington makes a pretty clear statement there. However, 9 years later, that is renegotiated, and it is replaced by the peace treaty of the Treaty of Tripoli. That's peace and amity. And Article 14 addresses the same issues that Article 11 addressed, and that statement is completely removed. And I'm not going to read it because there's lots of things, but ultimately you can go find this online. It's very simple. Okay, Article 14 of the Treaty of Tripoli, 1805, peace and amity. What it's distinctly saying is that, hey, as we're trading and you come on our land and we come on your land, you can worship whatever you want when you're on our land. We're not policing your religion. We just want, this is a trade agreement.
Yeah.
We're not here trying to force any religion on you. And as you come here, we're not going to force you, oh, you can't worship in the way that God's called you, you're according to your conscience when you get here.
Yeah.
We just want to establish trade. That's what Article 14 and Article 11 were meant to be. And I think what I would argue, and obviously anybody can argue against this, but George Washington just kind of you ever speak in hyperbole? Yeah. I think he just wrote in hyperbole here in a treaty, and then later they were like, we don't like that. One, we need to renegotiate this thing anyway, because the pirates aren't actually living up to what was happening at that time. And so we're going to renegotiate it. And so they took that out. So, and that's like, the only statement that I can find of anything like that as it relates to the founding fathers not having Christianity deeply rooted into the founding documents and just the ethos of who they were and what they were trying to do and to put into America. You can look at, like, we could continue and look at court cases and see how Joseph Story, who's appointed to the Supreme Court by James Madison, he writes a commentary on the Constitution. When he commentates on the First Amendment, he distinctly articulates what that is about. It's not about keeping the church out of government. It's not what it's about at all. It's actually about making sure that no Protestant denomination supersedes another, that they're all considered equal. That was their intention, because all the states kind of had their different flavors of Protestantism. And so they wanted to be sure that they could worship the Protestant Jesus, so to speak, the way they saw it in their denomination and their flavor, and no one was going to have any issues like, oh no, this is against, over and above the else. So you can see these in other court cases as well that go along with that. So it's just, there's so much, bro.
You've given me 150 inroads to ask you further questions.
Okay.
I wanted to say real quick, it seems like, and I don't know if you've heard this, but I keep close tabs on Dr. Dawkins, because he has been highly influential to my generation, your generation.
No doubt.
I know all of my friends in high school were reading The God Delusion.
Some fun statements he's made recently.
Exactly. That's what I was going to bring up is it doesn't seem like he's rescinded anything in that book, but he is coming to terms with I think he said he wants to be a secular Christian, in that the way that Christianity has ordered Western society seems preferable to him to others.
Yeah, we say that around here this way. The way of Jesus is just better.
Yeah,
it is, man.
But this is not, also, because you brought up John Leland, this is not to the isolation or exclusion or persecution of other faiths. Leland was adamant. And I don't have the quote right up, but he said, and it's funny because he uses, obviously it was in the 1700s, 1790s, so he uses some outdated language, but he calls the Muslims the Turks.
Yeah.
But he says, the Jews and the Turks, they have absolutely, they've got the right to practice their religion on our soil. Mm-hmm. He was not condemning them or wanting to isolate from them in any way. He was just simply putting his way of life that he has inherited from the teachings of Jesus up against other ways of life, in particular up against the king, the King of England.
Yes.
And the persecution that had happened for hundreds of years before that. You think about the Baptist pastors who were prevented from working or from shopping in the marketplace because they taught adult baptism.
Correct.
So he was staunchly against religion taking hold of the laws in a way that that isolated or condemned. But he's not saying no Christians in politics. And John Leland, we bring him up because the famous Baptist pastor. We're Baptists, Smoky View
Yep.
Baptist Church, and he was sort of, you mentioned it, whispering in the ear of
Certainly.
Thomas Jefferson.
I mean, he
and
told
Madison.
James Madison that he wouldn't support him
Mm.
and wouldn't endorse him for his presidential run until James Madison promised that he would write a Bill of Rights ensuring religious freedom.
Yeah, yeah,
So was he in his ear? I don't know. You tell me. Right? Like it's just so. And to hit on what you're talking about, like we can go even further back in the history and understand why these pilgrims came here to begin with.
Mm.
Like it was under religious persecution where they could, the law of the king would not allow them to worship according to their conscience and what they saw before God.
Mm.
And so seeking religious freedom, they came to the Americas.
yeah.
And so there was, it's if you read the stories of these things and like what was happening it wasn't like, oh, they were being oppressed. Bro, like these kings were brutal to Protestants.
Oh, they were awful.
I mean, so like it was a rough time. So you
Yeah.
go back even further to understand the soil in which America was birthed. You have the seed of America was birthed. Like you have to go further back into England and what was happening, 100, 200 years even prior to the Pilgrims moving into and heading over on ships to come over here and establish something new. Yeah.
And the Protestant, in particular, I would say the Baptist value was to elevate or honor the individual man. I think I'm going to flex my Baptist muscle here.
Flex it.
And quote Article 21 of the London Baptist
Oh, geez. Come on.
Confession of Faith in 1689. It says, God alone is Lord of the conscience and hath left it free from the doctrines of men which are in any way contrary to his word or not contained therein. God alone is Lord of the conscience. So they're saying the king is not Lord of
What
the
year
conscience.
was that?
1689.
Think about that.
Ah, yeah.
We're talking what,
100 years
150 years,
before Leland. Yeah.
And so this was the soul in which he gleaned his information from, and so man, it's like, know your history. That's the thing. Like history, there's these statements out there. History repeats itself, and things like that for a reason. And in Scripture, there's these moments when God's people have these experiences where God shows up and does something mighty and wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's like passing through the Jordan, Joshua with the people of Israel heading over to Jericho. It's like, hey, take stones, stack them, so that your grandkids, when they come by here, you can say, this is what God did here at this moment. Don't ever forget it. And we need to do the same thing. We need to stack stones. We need to know our history and stack stones on moments, or else the beautiful things that God did and established, we will hand over to the enemy.
Yeah.
And I don't want that for my grandkids. We are, I spoke a couple of weeks ago, we're not just called to leave a financial legacy, but a social legacy as well. And we need to ask the question, the decisions that we're making right now as followers of Jesus, as it pertains to the political issues of the day, which are really spiritual issues, we're leaving our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren something societally.
Yeah.
Is it going to be better or worse? And so I want to be on the right side of that. I want to work towards and speak towards leaving a legacy of a societal legacy that's better than I found it. Yeah.
And to the topic of legacy, we talked about this in the first week. John Leland had a quote. He said, because he's talking about binding his children's consciences. So God alone is Lord of the conscience, but we have a duty to at least form and shape the consciences of our children. And Leland says, he says, does a man upon entering into social compact surrender his conscience to that society to be controlled by the laws thereof? Or can he, in justice, assist in making laws? So he's talking about participating in government.
Mm-hmm.
Can he assist in making laws to bind his children's consciences before they're born? I judge not for the following reason. Every man must give an account of himself to God, and therefore every man ought to be at liberty to serve God in that way which he can best reconcile it to his conscience. If government can answer for individuals at the day of judgment, let men be controlled by it in religious matters. Otherwise, let men be free.
Yeah.
That's a powerful quote.
Yeah. So, okay, play that out. What John Leland is saying is, let me say it this way. The government's job is not to do good. Romans 13 is pretty clear on what its job is. It's the ministry of justice. I'll say it again. The government's job is not to do good.
Wow.
It's to ensure that justice is in place so that the people of the society can do the most good according to their conscience and how they worship and what they see, how they understand morality and ethics.
Yeah.
And so the second that the government begins to step in and try to do the good, they're trying to like answer for individuals and the individual conscience, and it's like, nah, stay out of that. That's what religious freedom is about, and we have a role and responsibility of training up our children, in the way that they should go, and leaving a legacy. You know, the way you do that is just to leave a societal legacy that's better than you left it. You have to teach your children what's right, what's wrong as it pertains to government. Do they even understand what government's supposed to do and its roles? Do they understand the history of the American government? Because that's the one we live in particularly. And, you know, if somebody's watching us somewhere else, like you have your responsibility and as a citizen of your country, whatever that looks like. And so, but as it pertains to us, specifically to America, that's, so we have a responsibility. And if we're going to disciple and equip people, which is what God has called us to do, as a pastor, called me to do, is to equip the believers.
Yeah.
Like we have to equip them in the area of how to think about the political issues of their day, because not just because, but even more so because the political issues of our day are spiritual issues.
Yeah.
And I think it was Henry Nouwen who years and years and years ago wrote, like, hey, you strip God from the culture and the morality and the ethics of a Christian God from the culture. The one of the problems he saw with that is like, hey, people are worshipers.
Yeah.
Like the question isn't whether you worship or not. We don't have that option. Everyone worships. The question is who or what are you worshiping? And when you strip God out of the equation with the secularist ideas and ideals, what you're left with is really the next most powerful thing, at least in terms of the thing that has the most scope in your life, is the government.
Yeah.
And he kind of made this prophetic statement that what you'll see is people will decry religion and yet use very religious terms about their political positions as it pertains to the left side of the aisle or the right side of the aisle.
Wow.
And so what you see now is people decrying religion, yet saying things that are absolutely religious as it pertains to their political party.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, oh, really? You don't like religion? Interesting.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're worshiping right now.
Wow.
An elephant or a donkey. So whatever that is. So yeah.
My goodness gracious. Well, I want to get. We talked about getting practical and tactical with the podcast.
Sure. So have we? I hope to some degree.
Well, so this may be throwing you a curveball, but I want to give you.
As long as it's not a changeup, I never could hit changeups, man. Curveballs, I could decently hit a curveball. Changeups got me, man. Oof.
I want to give you a scenario. And again, we've talked about the liberty of the conscience.
Sure.
So I just personal anecdote.
Let's go.
I worked in national cable television. 2 Sundays ago, well, last Sunday, I think we talked about the sanctity of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our programming was homosexual content in nature. And my boss was a gay man and several of my coworkers. And there's a scenario where my boss was getting married to his partner,
Sure.
male partner, and I had to ask myself, do I go to the wedding if invited? And do I buy a wedding gift?
Sure.
What do I do?
Yeah.
So we're talking about this podcast existing to supply the front lines
Mm-hmm.
in our workplaces, in our lives, in our culture. Supply the front lines from the pulpit. I'll just personally, I'll just tell you that I chose out of my conscience to get them a nice gift. I didn't want to be rude or come off as weird in any way or whatever, and he was my boss, and so I wanted to win a little bit of favor in the workplace.
Yeah.
Got them a nice gift. I ended up I prayed and prayed and prayed about it, and thank God they decided to have a really small gathering, and he didn't invite any coworkers.
Yeah.
So I ended up but I don't know how I would have handled that, because as a member of the assembly in a wedding, you are bearing witness to the union. You're giving your amen. And so we talked about the sanctity of marriage on Sunday. Take us through a couple of those real issues, and maybe some of your ideas.
Yeah. So my first thing is we spoke a lot about John Leland, and it was like, hey, these are the conscience is an important thing, and the Bible doesn't directly have a statement that says you should or should not attend a wedding of a gay couple, and like I don't even know that we can call that a wedding. I don't even like using that language, because a wedding is for a marriage, and marriage is between a man and woman. If it's anything else, it's not what's happening there. There's some sort of party going on, and they're making some sort of thing. I know that's maybe controversial, but like it's like that's not what marriage is. I'm not going to allow them to redefine it or whatever. So I understand that, and I think where it really, the argument from extreme is like, what do you do if this is your child, right? And how do you love your child well in that situation? I don't want to like hug the fence or like deflect from the question. I think if it was me, and I'll just answer from my own position, I would have a very serious conversation with my child.
Yeah.
Now, about where I stand, and here's the thing: I'm not gonna have to, because my child's already gonna know where I stand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so that's part of it, and they already have an expectation of what dad's response would be, mom's response would be to this, to that relationship, because we've been having clear conversation about this quite literally since they were 7 years old.
Yeah.
And so parents, do your job.
Yeah.
Educate your children at appropriate times with the appropriate topics, so that they're not thrown to the wolves.
Yeah.
Because if you don't disciple them, the world will.
Yeah.
And is gonna.
Yeah.
In ways that are pretty powerful. And so that's part of it, like start early.
Yeah.
This is why we need to do this. And I think when we do that, we can alleviate a lot of this, at least within family. Now, as it pertains to like a job.
Yeah.
Now we're functioning in a society where we have to allow people to function according to their conscience, which this, your boss was doing. And go ahead. Like, and to that. And I think at that point, if it were me, I'm not attending a wedding. And whether or not I get a gift, it depends maybe on how aware they are of my position.
Yeah.
Like I want people to be to understand where I stand.
Yeah.
And I want to understand where clarity's kind.
Yeah.
Like I want to know where you stand, and where and that's okay if you want to think differently or whatever. We can have conversations about why you would be wrong.
Yeah.
You know, in fun, I would say that in jest, but it's a very serious topic. But yeah, like, you know, and so I think it's tough. That's a really challenging thing, because then you start talking about family members and how do you support them, and you know, we can even jump into, I think, in relation to this, like the issues of transgenderism and things like that.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do when a cousin wants, you know, is attempting to change names and wants to be a you know, a different gender or whatever? Like, how do you honor that? Do you honor those pronouns? Do you use those pronouns, or do you call them by what they actually are, the truth? And how do you do that graciously? As it stands for me right now, and I could be moved on this, I'm going to call people what they are.
Yeah.
And I'll do that graciously and kindly, but I'm not going to capitulate to some sort of ideology that's not even scientific.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to capitulate to a redefinition of marriage that only happened in human history like 10 years ago, within 10 to 15 years ago.
Very recently.
It's like, no, I'm gonna, marriage is this.
Yeah.
Anything else, you call it whatever. I don't know. Call it whatever you want. That's your prerogative. Stop hijacking Christian terms and trying to make Christianity something that it's not. It is partly my job as a Christian and a pastor to hold the line and draw the line and say, no, that's not what this is. And so my position is, I'm not attending. I'm gonna love them, bro. Like, anybody who knows me, like, man, I'm a chaplain.
Yeah.
I interact and engage with people like across all the spectrums, whatever you want. Yeah. And it's my job to do that. And so one of the things that we do is the way we say it as a chaplain is we either provide or provide for. So some people, I can provide what they're asking.
Yeah.
Other people, I have to go and find them what they're asking for.
Yeah.
You know, a Muslim comes to me, I'm not going to provide them Muslim counsel.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but what I do, my responsibility as a loving chaplain, and I think even as a Christian, like, hey, like, I know this might be helpful. I don't know, but if you want to have a conversation about where I come from, you know, so we try to do that. So we provide or provide for, and
it would do them a profound disservice if you tried to wear that hat.
Yeah, like,
having
that's not helpful.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
You know. And now, if you want to have a conversation, like, and what I will do is, like, hey, I'm willing to sit here and have a conversation. Just know that this is where I'm coming from. If you're seeking counsel, I would love to provide some counsel. I'm going to come from this, and if that's okay, and that's not going to be, you know, it's not going to be detrimental to you and is more hurtful or whatever. You know, that's your prerogative. But if you're willing, hey, let's have a conversation.
Yeah,
I'm going to do that, man, with so much grace and kindness and love of Jesus. And I'm once again back to the where they at.
Yeah,
are they on the football field with the jersey? Are they claiming to be a Christian? And like, okay, then I'm going to engage them one way. If they're out at the tailgate party, like, they don't even know why they're there. Yeah. You know, like, football, what's that? I don't even know what that big thing. I was just here for the party, you know, that, you know, and that's you know, I'm just making a typecast here, joking around about it. But then I'm going to meet them there, and that's where I'm going to start. And that's how you do that graciously and kindly. But we try to say it this way. And here's how I would engage in people. Clarity is kind because it's, put your cards up front.
Yeah.
Like, just don't hide your cards. We're sitting here playing poker. I'm not keeping my card. I'm laying all 5 of my cards over. Yeah. This is my hand. Yeah. This is my position from the get-go. Yeah. So that way people know.
We're not trying to deceive or confuse.
I'm not disingenuous. I'm not hiding anything around my back. I'm not trying to Jesus juke nobody.
Yeah.
No, I'm not trying to sneak attack. I'm just trying to live according to Jesus. And there's things that Jesus says about marriage. There's things that Jesus says about sexuality. There's things that Jesus says about nations. There's things that Jesus says about the sanctity of life.
Yeah.
There's, and I'm not moving on those. I'm going to be clear up front. If you have a different position, you're not going to have to guess where I'm stand on them.
Yeah.
I'm just going to let you know and do that graciously so I can stand firm.
Well,
with no sharp edges.
Back to the stone that's round. Yeah. I love that analogy too. I'll tell you where I landed on all of it was just simply to educate myself. I got to know I got to know Leviticus 18:22, the definition of the Hebrew word shakab that we have translated as men laying with men, the definition that Paul used of the word arsenokotai. I butchered that, but educated myself on the progressive, quote unquote, Christian ideology about that sort of thing. And then the historical Protestant position. I came to a position of my own after quite a lot of reading, quite a lot of praying, and I ended up believing that hey, Jesus always had a seat at the table open for everybody.
Sure.
He invited the Pharisees, the righteous. He invited the the prostitutes, the tax collectors, the worst of the worst, the Samaritans, the who were considered worst of worst in the society. For me, I concluded I'll always have a seat at my table open for whomever. And
I think that's a good conclusion. Same.
And so I ended up buying my boss
Sure.
a food item, a food related item,
As a means to say there's a seat at the table.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I'm with that.
And never talked about it.
Sure.
Never wrote them a little card because it's a memorable moment in his life.
Yeah.
It's a milestone moment.
For
so
sure.
bought him a food item, wrote him a little card, and then I just concluded that, hey, if he asks me, then he will know my position. But he'll know it by my love, that I want his good and his flourishing. And I believe that human flourishing comes in loving union between man and woman.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think like your situation is probably a little different just because when it comes with colleagues and things like that, there's just a different dynamic there in terms of like how much personal relationship happens there at all, if any, and then they invite, and I just, hey, I'm probably busy on that day kind of situation, like, because I think the only way you invite a seat at the table is if you even know the person relationally. So relational evangelism in these situations is really usually going to be the most effective means. And so that, hey, there's always a seat at the table. Come, let's have a conversation. But I think, when you talk about Jesus and tax collectors and who he ate with and that type of thing, it's like, yeah, he always had a seat at the table. But I don't ever recall a moment where they were confused about what he thought about their tax practices and their prostitution.
Yeah.
Right. And so like his cards were on the table up front. Hey, I'm a rabbi. Like, absolutely. And I believe in the Hebrew text, and I'm teaching that thing. Yeah. And expressing it. So
John chapter 8, verse 11, neither do I condemn you. I don't condemn you. Go therefore and sin no more.
Sin no more. Yeah.
And so he doesn't condemn, John 3:17.
And he makes, and the beautiful thing about Jesus, right, which is what we're trying to do and talk about and explain, is that Jesus makes a way for us to live out what our heart's desire is, what we truly need. Yeah. The thing that we've been searching for, to go all the way back to the beginning, right? The thing that everybody's searching for, Jesus made a way for us to not only have him, the thing that we're searching for, but also the thing, the expression that actually fulfills the desires of our heart, the deep desires, not these shallow, perverted ones. Yeah. And so Jesus made the way for that. He died on a cross and came out of a grave, and his grace is not just forgiveness for what we've done and will do, where we miss the mark in the future, but his grace is also the means by which, through the power of the Spirit, that we're able to live in accordance to the law that he's called us to, which is summed up in love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well,
as it pertains to even politics.
Yeah.
Because it is a salt and light issue. Yeah. It's a Sermon on the Mount issue. Yeah. And maybe we'll end this way, as it pertains to this, it's a love thy neighbor issue, and the salt's no good if it's still in the salt shaker. Yeah. It only is effective when you get it on the food. So we gotta be the salt out there as it pertains to political issues that are really spiritual issues. Yeah. 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 So, we went lots of places.
We really did.
Hey, it's Monday. Now what? That's what we tried to answer. as it pertains to politics, and try to get practical and tactical with some things. I never want to tell people what to do, but I want to give them principles and ideas to think about that clearly come from Scripture, and then allow the Spirit to move them to do it, to do what they've been called to do, and how they need to respond in those things. And so, hopefully, this was helpful.
Yeah.
Maybe fleshed out some more things, gave you some more ideas to think about, and we'll keep doing this. We'll be back next week because Sunday I'm going to talk about. What am I talking about Sunday?
You're getting into Romans.
Not yet.
Oh no. Okay.
Oh no. I remember now. I wrote the message yesterday, so I'm ready. I'm ready to go on that. We're going to talk about a rhythm of rest as worship.
Oh wow.
That's going to be the last sermon of this series.
Yeah.
What is a rhythm of rest being worship as well? So in a society that more go, what does rest look like?
Yeah.
And how can we do that in a way that God's called us to as a form of worship, and see it as a means of worship in a busy society? So next week, that's what we'll talk about.
Excellent. I look forward to it. Well, it's Monday Now What?
Yep.
I'm Joshua. I'm a brother here at Smoky View Baptist Church, and this is our pastor, Austin Davis. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.